Moment, gentlemen. Julian.
David, now first of all, just to say, our psychic experiment, we had the wrong number on the screen earlier for this psychic experiment we're running with this piece of wood here. Now believe me, this piece of wood, whatever it is, has a history, and we want to know what you think that might be. It's from one of the locations we're at tonight. Here are the details, just repeat them with the right number this time. So text us please to haunted, then EXP for experiment, space, then your answer or comment, space, your name and area, and send it to this number, and this is the right number this time, 83088. That's 83088. So please get in touch with your thoughts on that piece of wood. Now, lots of comments coming in, David, which I want to pass on to you. First of all, some studio trends. Anthony from Chester has seen the ghost of a tall man standing next to David Bull. Just thought, yeah, really. Craig from Blackpool has seen a pink and purple orb above my head, so that's the first one I've had on Most Haunted. Psychic Art is coming in on the text number. Thank you very much. Here's our first example. We don't know any more than that. It's just arrived, but it's Psychic Art is where you think about watching the show and experiences in Derby, and then you draw and open your mind, and out it comes, and there's the picture that's come through on the fax. Some more stories coming in, interestingly. At 9:21, over 30 people saw a woman in white on the stage where Derek and Yvette and the team are, which it was amazing. At 9:07, Stephen from Bridgend and James in Horton saw a chair move on webcam 3. So that's some webcam news coming in. And several people have reported someone calling Lucy on webcam 1. So that's the latest from Interactive, David. Keep the calls, texts and website visits coming.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Do keep, as Julian says, please keep in contact with us. Right, we move to our next location tonight, and that is Derby Jail. Now, Derby Jail is on Friar Gate, the west of the city centre. It was built in 1756 as the second county prison. There's the 3D image. It was in operation until the 1820s, and it was the last place in England that someone was hanged, drawn and quartered. Men and women were executed for crimes such as murder, treason, and even for setting fire to a haystack. And in the 1820s, many people died due to poor sanitary conditions in that jail. Now, earlier today, our team took a closer look at this fascinating location.
I'm standing in the second of 3 county jails here at Derby. This was built in 1756, and talk about place of torment, terror and torture and, of course, death. From the year 1800, there were well over 200 hanging offences in this country. A girl of 16 was hanged in front of this building for murder. 3 men hanged and beheaded here in 1817, which turned out to be the last hanging, drawing and quartering to take place in provincial England. They hanged them for half an hour, took them down dead, and then chopped off their heads in front of a crowd of 6,000 people.
Derby Jail is probably one of the most controversial places that we've investigated. I, for some unknown reason, burst into tears in the condemned man's cell, and the trigger object, a cross, seemingly moved all on its own. I don't know. I don't know.
Of course, some people took their own lives and cheated the hangman, and 2 brothers, the Jones brothers, hanged themselves in the condemned cell the night before their execution. The jailer found them hanging above the door, fetched the surgeon to bleed them, to revive them, but they were dead, and they buried them beneath the gallows.
I've spent many nights in here with my father when it was a nightclub. I was helping to clear up after the nightclub had closed. We'd had a fancy dress party that night. It's a Halloween party, so people were dressed in spooky costumes. We'd cleared everyone out, or so we thought. I turned around towards what was the bar, and there was a man standing there looking at me. I asked him to leave, pointed to the door and told him which way to go, and he walked in the opposite direction, walked around the corner into the passageway, door bolted from the inside, and not a sign of the person at all. He'd gone, completely disappeared without a trace.
The condemned cell, occasionally the door will open of its own accord. One particular example I had was several weeks ago. We had a group of visitors out on a ghost walk. I came back here to prepare things for their arrival, and the cell door was closed. I went around sorting out other things like lighting candles, I came back and the cell door was wide open. Thinking I'd forgotten to do that, I went back, pushed it to again, went into our kitchen area, put the coffee on, came back, and the door was wide open.
So where does all the paranormal activity come from? Well, many mediums and paranormal groups that have investigated the jail say that it all seems to emanate from behind this wall. Behind the wall used to be the centre of the jail where a lot of criminals were admitted, and also it would have been the last place they would have seen before they were taken out and hanged.
With such awful torment that went on in here, no wonder this is certainly the most haunted place in Derby, possibly one of the most haunted places in Great Britain.
Derby Jail is a cold, dark, terrifying place where no one should have to spend any time alone. But tonight, they're going to have to.
So there you go, the story of Derby Jail. Now something really odd has just happened. We were just watching that back. Now I want to show you the picture that came up during that taped thing that we just saw. Now there we are. There is the picture that we showed of the last man to be hanged. And now I want to show you this, which was just faxed to us by B. Kandikar. This is psychic art. Can you close in on that? Let's just have a look. Okay. Okay, there is the drawing that we've had with the psychic art, and there is the last man to be hanged. Matthew Smith, what do you make of that? The same man, B. Kandikar, thank you very much for that. He's drawn the person that was in our film.
That's one interpretation of it, or it's just two men with beards.
David Wells?
Yeah, and of course there only ever would be one man with a beard, so it couldn't possibly be right. I think it's amazing. You know, I think it's incredible.
I have to say, I think that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Well, not really, just simply because, I mean, it's not as if it's kind of like, oh, it's almost an exact match. Just somebody happens, of all the people sending in pictures, one happens to be a man with a beard, and it just so happens, it's, you know, it's a very minor coincidence, in my opinion.
It is a very similar picture.
Not
all right, Matthew, enough. Right, Stephen, you just you were out in McCluskey's nightclub earlier on tonight. Tell us, what was it like for you out there?
It's very dark in the cellar, very, very dark. Normal temperature, but then when we started to go up the stairs, the EMF meter went off and it got really, really hot.
What do you make of this EMF meter going off? Now, it read 10 on the scale, that EMF meter. Is that important to you? Do you think that's relevant?
Yeah, there was no wires or anything electrical that could set that off.
Because that was Matthew's point, whether there were any wires there.
No,
so, and what do you make of the fact that Derek picked up two people? We know two people lost their lives there. Derek didn't know that. He came up with that, and he came up with names. You are a believer, though, aren't you? What would you say to Matthew Smith, who says that you know, simply, Derek isn't good enough, and that actually he may well have read that in a book?
Possibly. That's one interpretation, but I don't know.
But you're... Go on.
Well, I think the EMF really going that way. So a lot of the time we go to locations and there's nothing there to pick up on. And when it does, it's quite clearly there's a source. If there's no apparent source, that's of some interest. I think what you'd need then to do is spend more time there and doing more reading, essentially. Again, I'm not going to be easily convinced by, you know, one machine bleeping. You know, we'll need to do some more investigation.
You know, the best bit, Matthew, is watching David Wells's face when you start talking. It's fantastic. Let me just stop you there for the moment. Right, the team has arrived at our next location. They're just arriving outside. However, we will continue the investigations deep into Derby Jail after this break.